Okay, welcome once again to a new painting tutorial. Now it's time for the W-Y Commandos. I'm gonna get inspiration from the PC game Colonial Marines and loosely base the paint scheme on the artwork from that game. So what I've done here first of all is I've primed it with a spray primer. Can't remember what kind of white I used since they have been sitting here such a long time. The first thing we're gonna do here is we are gonna improve the base coat a bit with the white, so the white is even all around. I'm gonna be using Vallejo's Dead White for this task. I'm just gonna be putting some white here on my palette. And this white is really thick, and I'm gonna dilute it with water quite a lot, because this is just going to be improving of the white primer, and we don't want it to clog up any of the details, so we keep this very thin and apply it all around, all across the miniature. Even the areas that aren't supposed to be white are still going to get an even coat, so the paint will stick better. The paint is probably 50-50 water down. Can really see the areas like behind the arms and certain angles on the helmet that are a bit patchy from the priming. Going all over the miniature like this is going to help with consistency of how the rest of the paint is going to stick to the model. So as I started working this model, I noticed a big gap on its shoulder. It annoys me quite much, so I am going to try to fill it with the green stuff. And if you, like me, are going to be building increasingly larger and larger kits from the Protoss product line, the AvP products, you're going to notice that filler like green stuff or Millipat are going to be your best friend moving forward. What we're going to do here is going to take a piece of green stuff. This is really basic for a lot of you, but I don't think I've been showing the viewers on my channel yet. So the idea is you take equal parts of the colors here, the green and blue ones, and you're going to mix them together, because one of these components are the hardener and the other one is like the resin. And also a good tip here when you're working with blue stuff, the section here where the two components meet, you will have a small piece there that have hardened. So when you mix these two together, make sure to avoid using the bits that are connected in the center here. Just cut it off or throw away the parts that are hardened. So just roll them up with your fingers. And then just start to intertwine them, twist them into each other and make them into small balls, and roll them out again and make another ball until you have this even green consistency and color to it. When you don't have any more breakups between blue and green, and it's all the green color, you're ready to use it to fill the gaps. Here we are. We worked it into a green ball. And now I'm going to use some sculpting tools and silicone shapers to put it into place. So I'm just going to remove a small piece from the ball here and try to get it into a string. It's really hard with these tiny amounts. The gap isn't too wide, but still it has to be filled. So yeah, there's a little piece here. You often take all too much from what you're really gonna need when you're done with the piece you're working on. So you can also dip your tools in water so they don't stick to the green stuff when you're working with them. And just try to work their way into the gaps here. So I'm gonna use the sculpting tool to just force it in there. And then to even the edges, I'm gonna use the silicone shaper to make the gaps disappear completely. Something like this. Silicone shaper. Can really use force to bend the silicone to apply force to the green stuff so that it smoothly enters and evens out up to the details of the model. So just follow along with the correct shape of your tools to what shape you are working it into. Yeah, I think that's gonna be enough. You see the camera doesn't like the white reflections. Sorry about that. Okay, so what you always want to keep in mind when you're painting is contrast is king. The more contrast you can have with the colors, the more depth and realistic the model will look. And these particular models are a bit of a challenge because there's so much white in them. So what we're going to do is we're going to deviate from the inspirational pictures from the PC game, and I'm actually going to make the overall that's beneath the armor gray instead of white that they usually are portrayed in the game, because I want to create more contrast with the figure. And also I've seen some other painters making their W-Y Commandos like that, and I thought they looked amazing. So I'm going to be mixing a recipe with 50-50 of Abaddon Black and 50% of Mechanicus Standard Grey to get this nice dark shade for the undersuit. Then I'm just gonna remove some excess paint before I start to apply it. Alright, so we're gonna start with the undersuit then, the grey undersuit. And I'm gonna try to be as neat as I can when I'm getting close to the armor parts, but I probably have to clean this up a few times before we go to the next step to get all the borders perfect between the whites and the black grays. So just use some reference pictures to break up the areas. What part should be of what color. Really hard to be precise on these fasteners around the knee pads and stuff. Yeah, probably gonna have to be cleaning a lot of this up later. Alright, so I think I'm satisfied with the cleanup after I've added the mix of Mechanicus Standard Grey and Black to the undersuit, and also to places like the glove and the gun and the face mask. Yeah, So next step is going to be applying a first kind of base coat for the skin. And these fellas only have like the arms, small piece of the arms bare. It's just gonna be a little dab of color on there. For the base coat of the skin tones, I'm gonna be using Bugman's Glow. So we're gonna finally going to see something else than white and black on this model. This stage is where this W-Y Commando starts to feel alive. This little bit of color makes a great difference. So far so good. Gonna make sure this is clean again. I think I missed some spots on the elbow straps. Then it's on to the next step. So this next step is going to be applying a wash, a Nuln Oil wash to almost the whole miniature. We're primarily after to shading all the white armor parts with this black wash. And we're also going to be focusing on getting all the gray areas shaded as well. And as usual, you should be shaking your paints all the time before you start applying a new layer. And this way of making white armor is originally an idea that I got from Sorastro's painting tutorials. I was watching him doing stormtroopers for Imperial Assault, and I just applied this simple technique to the Yutanis. Yep, we're just gonna be covering this whole model almost with a shade of Nuln Oil. I'm gonna try to avoid getting some on the hands and arms because they are not supposed to be shaded with this yet. They're supposed to be of another color later on when I do the layering for the skin. So just be very generous with this, and like you always do, don't let it pool in the wrong places. Move the paint around if it's starting to gather in places you don't want to. Make sure every part of the model gets some shade, especially all the whites. Doing the gun as well, even though the pulse rifle is far from done. Just want to get it darken. Things are starting to happen. Gonna let this dry for a while now.
The shade is dry, and what I'm going to do now is I'm going to use some dead white again to select some parts of the armor scales to brighten them up again, so we get some contrast between the plates of the armor. You can just pick some plates yourself that you think would be a little bit brighter than the other ones. This is all to get the miniature to seem more interesting and pop on the battlefield. I know for a fact I'm going to be brightening the top of the helmet, so I'm gonna make sure to water down the paint quite a lot here, because in some sense I still want to keep this dirty look from the wash, but I think this way of applying a very thin white on top of the dirty wash makes it looks interesting. More like worn plastic or ceramic or whatever these armor plates are supposed to be made of. And whenever there's going to be a recess or line where the wash has been stuck into, I make sure to leave some space to that crevice where the wash is, so I still get these well-defined lines between armor plating and the undersuit, and again, this is to get the contrast even more differentiated between parts of the figure. So just go over with more thin layers of this watered down paint until you're satisfied with the amount of brightness on your white, on your dirty armor. Yeah, so you can see now that the white on the helmet is starting to be a lot more brighter than like the shoulder plates things. I'm going to do this on all the whites. Flat surfaces that are faced upwards towards the light, and maybe not do so much on the leg guards. So just select a few areas that you want to make brighter and keep like lower parts, recesses on the armor, dark from the shade. On the shoulders here I'm just brightening up all the raised areas, keeping the dirt and grime from the wash in the recesses. A good thing when you're working with this thin paint is you don't overload your brush, because it will find its way down into places you don't want it to. I think I'm only going to brighten up the parts facing upwards, so I get some natural shade on the things going around the upper arms. For some of the plates I just do a highlight on the edges. And for the leg arch I'm going to do like that as well. I want them to be the most sturdy because they're closest to the ground. And I'm just going to catch the raised areas at the edges with some white. Okay. I believe that's it for this stage. We have now created a much more interesting looking figure with defining the whites in certain areas. And the result is a much more interesting piece to look at least in my opinion. Now it's time to do a quick definition of the arms, the flesh tone. We only have the darker base coat right now, so I'm going to use Cadian flesh tone here to make it a bit brighter. And the idea is to apply it in very thin layers with lots of water in it, so we can build up some kind of transition, because the underside of the arms are going to be a bit darker. So maybe 2-3 coats with the water down on the upper parts of the arm facing the sun or the external light source. So just gonna put down some here. I'm gonna leave, like, if I can, half a millimeter of the older base coat showing in the edges. So I'm not gonna be painting this all the way up to the black undersuit. I guess it just helps with getting some shaded areas called out. It's gonna be hard to drop this in the elbow slot here without messing it up. Yeah, I think it works. The paint is so thin now that it almost naturally gets shaded with a flesh tone, with it showing through. Just apply like 1 or 2 layers more on the upside of the arms, the light exposed sides, and the underlying paint is gonna do most of the work for you. Don't even need like the Reichland flesh shade or whatever to do this, because I think it's enough like it is. This time we're going to make some parts of the black undersuit and armor parts stand out more. Right now everything is just treated with this mixture of black and Mechanicus grey, and I want to do some forms of highlights on that one, or at least make the black armor stand out from the underlying undersuit. And we're gonna use Eshin Grey for this. It's the go-to color for highlighting deep black in general. And I'm gonna get this on the elbow guards, knee pads, and eventually also the pulse rifle, but I might actually do that now as well. Gonna see soon. The belt, you can also apply a bit of this on the back side. In the front you have this white things. White details, but the regular belt seems to be dark and black. It's kind of a subtle difference, but in the greater scheme of things, it's gonna make it more interesting. Rather than have like the model made in two tones. It's gonna break it up a little bit. Really subtle effects. Maybe I could have gone with some Mechanicus Standard Grey Pure instead. Get it one step brighter. But no, I think I like this one. Defining the straps for the guards as well. Same color. So they pop out a little bit. Like edges of the shoes. I've done this a little bit too much randomly, so I have to go back and apply some to straps I missed. Okay, the gun next. Just doing some edge highlighting here. Just gonna follow the most extreme areas that stick out on the weapon. Maybe a subtle watered down layer on the flat surface as well to give it a different hue from the rest of the blacks used. There we go. I don't want to put down more of this color on the weapon because I want it more like black shifting, not flat black. So it's kind of a patchwork, but that's the effect I'm after. Might do another wash on this to darken it and merge the Ashen Grey with the underlying color I put on earlier. Yep, I think that's it for highlighting and differentiating the black. Now we're gonna apply very small amounts of gunmetal gray from Vallejo. And I love this color, but you need to shake it like 5 times as much as a regular paint, because the pigments tend to fall to the bottom and it gets all too watery. I'm only gonna use this on top of the barrel of the weapon in the front to make it seem a little bit more like metal muscle in the front as well. So now we are closing in on the finer details of the model, and this time I'm going to apply a little brighter gray to some details like the fasteners and some straps. Now, as I'm working with Mechanicus Standard Gray, I could also take this opportunity to go over some other brighter grays and apply a watered down Mechanicus Standard Gray as a highlight. Gonna do it just a little bit on like the belt here on the back. Just a small amount. The upper parts. The elbow. Maybe the upper parts of the glove. And the visor too, I guess, to make it stand out even more. Just the top ridge here. Can try to catch the surrounding details here. The goggles. Perfect. Okay, we're almost done. Just take a look at your model and see if you can find some unique details on the sculpt to make it differentiate among the other in its company. So the most obvious thing is like the ammo things on its front here. If they are like grenades or shotgun shells, I don't know. But I usually make the edges of them red. I guess it's supposed to be like shotgun shells for the underslung attachment to the pulse rifle or something. Or it could just be the grenades for it. So just very gently take some corn red. The piston works really good as well, but I'm gonna keep the colors a bit muted. And I'm gonna offload some of the brush. I'm just gonna gently touch the edges here. This is gonna be precise work, so I hope my fingers are up for it. Just touch gently on the edges on the shells here. Yeah, that one went kind of well. This is gonna be even more tricky. Okay, I screwed up. I'm gonna have to fix it with some white later. One more to go. Okay, maybe. Gently now, touch the edge. Okay, that wasn't so bad. I'm just gonna fix up the other one now. Oh wait, yeah. I need a little bit of white in the center on the reds on his right belt strap there. Then we're done. So here they are. My version of the W-Y Commandos. It's all about patience when you make the first broad strokes with the undersuit and the whites. Be as neat as possible with the lines, and the wash will do the rest for you. So yeah, thank you for watching.